Did a mock draft and you wrote an article with it and kind of the title, could Cleveland learn a lesson from Ravens quarterback gamble? So and you've kind of teased this. Here's what you had for your mock draft. You have the Browns taking Travis Hunter, then trading picks 33, 94, and 170, plus next year's third round pick to the Broncos for 20 to get ahead of the Steelers, I'm assuming, and 122, and then taking Milrow at 20, Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa, with that pick with 67, and then Billy Bowman, safety from Oklahoma. Um, when you look at Milrow, are you betting on the? Do you think the Browns are betting on the upside relative? Because let's assume Sanders was there at 20. Are the Browns going to bet on upside after, you know, pick 2, if you will?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the question I think you have to ask if you're, an NFL evaluator, going through all these different scenarios is do you go with the upside or do you go with a guy that is gonna if you feel like is gonna succeed in some way, shape, or form in the NFL? And I keep going back to Daniel Jeremiah and his his availability way back in February, talking about how he was a guy who always wants to bet on the upside. Now, Jalen Milroe is a guy that the more I've kind of dove in on him and really looked at things, his 2023 was I think better than his 2024. Maybe for me, as good a coach as Kalen DeBoer is, maybe he and Jalen Milroe just weren't the best fit. And I think I go back to a stat that Dalton Wasserman of PFF had that Jalen Milroe of the draft eligible quarterbacks in this class, he threw the most passes that were non-aided, non-play action, non-RPO, non-screen. And that's for a guy who's got sub 4.40 speed. It really a lot of straight dropbacks. And Milroe's a guy who is really good in play action, which I think his completion rate in play action was about 16 points higher than it was without play action, which, I mean, you want to talk about what the Browns do well on offense, and one of the first things you think about with Kevin Stefanski's offense, it's play action. And the way the Browns kind of built up the quarterback room this offseason, getting 2 veterans who can start in Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, gives you room to let Jalen Milroe develop behind the scenes and work on committing that footwork and his mechanics that he's been working on with Jordan Palmer the last couple of months to muscle memory. So certainly I think that's an interesting position. Like I said, I feel like as much as I kind of worry about you have to kind of worry what about the Steelers are going to do at 21. There's part of me that thinks they could go with a quarterback, whether it's Sanders or Monroe, and part of me that says, hey, we got Cam Hayward and TJ Watt for just a little bit longer. We traded for DK Metcalf. We got to go all in. We got to get a veteran. So it's unclear what they would do, but I think ultimately it's just going to be fascinating. I think you have to be fluid if you're the Browns, and if you really like either of those guys, you got to be aggressive and go for it. That's what you got 10 picks for.